Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Successful Minds webinar series. I'm very pleased that you've joined me this morning. It's so nice to see so many of you joining in. So thank you for spending the time to join me this morning. And I hope you've had a really, really lovely week since we last met virtually, and that you're enjoying some success in your lives with some successful thinking. So this is webinar 4 in our series of 5 webinars. So we began in the first webinar talking about the fundamental principles of creating a successful mind. In webinars 2 and 3, we started to look at more specifics, look at the detail around how you can create successful minds and think your way to success. And so webinar 4 is about certainty of success. And this is a very, very important webinar. This is an important element of the fundamentals of a successful mind. Because certainty in success is about belief. It's about what you believe about yourself and what you believe about your goals and what you believe about your model of the world. Beliefs can be incredibly empowering and they can be incredibly limiting. So what you believe about your capability to achieve your goals and how certain you are that you can achieve them and you will achieve them is really, really important. So how do we form our belief systems? Well, you've been forming your belief systems since birth. When you were very small, you took your beliefs from your parents, from friends, from family, maybe from your teachers, other people that you learned from, maybe from religion. And as you grew, you start to develop a whole element of belief systems. The belief systems that you have fit with your values systems. And together they provide your moral compass and they shape your thinking. They dictate what you will spend energy on, what you get motivated by, what you're willing to give time to. So your belief systems are very, very important. Now your belief systems can change from hour to hour, from day to day, depending on what environment you're in and what context you're working in. Think about it for a moment. Every time you turn on the news or open a newspaper, you're being bombarded with other people's beliefs. And then you make a choice. You either decide that those beliefs fit your model of the world and you will integrate them into your belief system, or you can actually start to absorb beliefs and take them on unconsciously, especially when you're watching the television. So think about when we were first told that our country was going into recession. It's quite a few years ago now. If nobody had believed that personally, would it have been true? It's an interesting question. Think about every time you hear something on the TV, on the news, and think about, if I believe that, how will it change the way I behave? I'll give you an example. I'm really, really, really fortunate that I can also work in Athens, in Greece. And I go out there and I train the NLP coach practitioner training every year. And I've done that for 6 years now. And if you've watched any of the news, you'll know the difficulties that that country has been through over the last few years. And people are consistently telling me, you won't be able to come next year to train. You won't sell any places on the courses. Nobody's going to buy because nobody has any money. Now, I had a choice at that point. I could have believed that and integrated it into my thinking and cancelled any further training in Athens. Well, what I actually did was chose not to believe that. I chose to believe that people would come and buy the training, and they would attend the training just like they had every year. And you know what happened? This year, I had the biggest attendance yet. So your belief system really dictates your success. It's important. So let's think about certainty. In our second webinar, we talked about setting goals and thinking about what you want for yourself in the future, because that's important to know what you want, and then you can focus on it. So a question for you: are you absolutely certain that you can get your goals? Are you certain you'll get it? Let's think about that for a moment. Think about something in your life, in any context, that you're 100% certain about. Just think about that for a moment. Something you're 100% certain about. Now, notice what happens in your mind as you think about that. Remember, during last week's webinar, we talked about internal representations. Notice the pictures in your mind. Notice the sounds in your mind. Notice how it feels when you think of that thing that you're 100% certain about. And notice any self-talk. Notice what stories you're telling yourself in your mind. That's your internal representation. Now, think about your goal. Think about your goal. And again, notice your internal representation. What pictures are in your mind? What sounds? What does it feel like? What stories are you telling yourself in your mind? And think about how those two pictures that you had in your mind, the thing that you're 100% certain about, and your goal, are they different? Did they feel different? Did they look different? Did they sound different? And did those differences make them more or less compelling to you? Just consider that for a moment. If your goal was so much less compelling than the thing that you're 100% certain about, then maybe you're not 100% certain about it. There's something in your belief system that is stopping you from being 100% certain that you can get your goal. And it's important that you think about that carefully and work out what are the limiting beliefs that are stopping you from getting your goal. So let's be honest, are you 100% certain that you will achieve your goal? And if not, what would make you 100% certain? Now, the answer to that question is going to be one of the indicators of a limiting belief that you have. Maybe you believe that you're not quite good enough to get your goal, that you don't know enough to get your goal, that you're not knowledgeable enough, you don't have the energy, you don't have the time, you don't have the money. What is your limiting belief that's stopping you from having a successful mind that will drive you towards your goals? Something that's really compelling, a goal that's really compelling and you're 100% certain about, will be very, very irresistible to your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is the goal getter. It will alter your behavior so that you can drive towards success. And that's important. So think about how you know certainty. How do you know when you're 100% certain? What does it look, sound, and feel like for you? Make sure you know. It's important. So just going back to review the model of communication that we looked at last week, just to put some nice frame around your beliefs and your internal representations. So we know that we absorb all of the information and data that's coming into us from our environment through our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory and gustatory senses. And we know that that's in the region of 2 million bits per second of information. And so we process that information to make it more manageable. Some of it we delete, some of it we distort, and some of it we generalize. We then get our internal representation: pictures, sounds, feelings, self-talk. And that's only 134 bits per second. So we've shrunk down 2 million bits per second of information to just 134. And so our internal representation and our model of the world is created. This then gives us an internal state, a feeling. And that affects our body because the mind-body connection is very, very real. And there we get our feedback loop. So our beliefs become part of this filtering system. It helps us to select which pieces of information we choose to make part of our internal representation. Our beliefs and values are very, very strong filters. So if you have a limiting belief, you're going to filter information accordingly. And so your internal representation will be created accordingly. It will change the way you feel, it will change how your physiology feels, and most importantly, it will change your behavior. So a successful mind creates successful behavior. And this is why beliefs are so very important. So when we're thinking about our belief system and our certainty in a successful mind, we need to consider, so what makes my internal representation of something I'm 100% certain about, and maybe how I feel about my goal, which right now isn't 100% certain? What's the difference in the internal representation between those two things? So we look at the differences that make a difference. And in NLP terminology, we call these differences submodalities. Think of submodalities in terms of a TV. In fact, if you're of a certain age, you might remember the very old televisions that actually had knobs on them before we had remote controls. And you had a number of different knobs that you could use. You had a knob for colour, and one for brightness, and one called contrast. And of course, you had one for the volume. And what you did is you adjusted each of these knobs and adjusted the properties of the picture and of the sounds that you could see so that you got the best feeling from that picture. And submodalities are exactly the same. So when you think of something, your goal, for example, you can create a representation of that in your mind. So it might be very visual. If you're a very visual person, there might be pictures. And those pictures will have properties, finer coding, just like the TV. So it might be a colour or it might be black and white. It might be a big picture or a small picture. It might be bright or dim. It might have a certain location on your mental screen. You might be in the picture, so you can see your body there, or you might be looking at it through your own eyes. It might be focused or defocused. It might have a frame around it, or it might be panoramic, or it might be a movie, or it might be still. These are what we call the submodalities, the differences that make a difference, the fine encoding of your internal representation. And there might also be sounds that are important if you're a more auditory preferenced person. So sounds will have a volume, and you'll probably be able to put a name to the sounds too. They might come from outside of you or inside of you, and they'll come from a certain direction, and maybe they're a certain pitch or depth. Again, these are submodalities distinctions. And then there'll always be some sort of feeling, because remember, your internal representation affects your state, your emotional state. And your feelings will have a name, you'll be able to name them, and they'll be located somewhere in your body. And they'll have a certain shape and a definite intensity. Again, submodalities, distinctions. And the differences between maybe something that you're 100% certain about and something you're not really certain about will have different submodalities. And these are the differences that make a difference. Let's try it out for a moment. Let's just play. So I'd like you to think of something that you're absolutely really, really motivated about. Something that you've done when you were really motivated. Can you think of something? Go ahead. Think of something or some time when you were really motivated. And just close your eyes for a moment. So as you think about that time when you were really motivated, just go back to that time now and imagine floating down into your body and hear what you heard, see what you saw, and really feel those feelings of being totally motivated. And notice your internal representation. What does the picture look, sound, and feel like? Just notice it and really feel those feelings of being totally motivated. Good, that's right. Now I want you to take that picture of being totally, totally motivated, and for a moment I just want you to shrink it down so it's small and dark. And then I want you to zoom it away so it goes right to the corner of the room that you're sitting in, right away from you. And as you do that, notice what happens to the motivated feeling. It's gone, isn't it? It's very simple. Just alter your internal representation and the feeling changes. So we don't want to leave it over there because we all want to be motivated for today. So have that picture, small and dark, over in the corner of the room. Have it come zooming back at you and hit you in full colour. Blah. So it comes back and it's big and bright and it's lovely and you're feeling motivated again. And hold on to that motivation. And open your eyes. Good. So you've just experienced how to change your internal representation and therefore change your state. And if your state changes, your behaviour would change. If you're incredibly motivated, you're going to have very different behaviour than if you have no motivation at all. Something this simple, just changing the representations that you have in your mind, can completely change the way you behave, and so can help your success. Simple, yeah. And NLP is simple and it's really easy to learn. So our beliefs create our success. So let's just think about beliefs for a moment. Here's a concept for you. Our beliefs are not true. Our beliefs are simply constructs around which we organise our behaviour. What you believe is what you get. And limiting beliefs limit our success, and empowering beliefs enable our success. So our beliefs are not true. They simply drive our behaviour. It's an interesting concept, and I want you to think about some of the limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. And just think, okay, these beliefs, even if I've held them for all of my life, they're not true. They're constructs, and I'm creating my behaviour and the way I function and my model of the world around them. And by doing that, you'll be able to identify which of your beliefs you need to change. And because our beliefs are, again, represented by our internal pictures, sounds and feelings, great news, we can change them. So if you have a limiting belief, you can change it. So let's think about possible limiting beliefs that you might have. So if you have a goal that you want to achieve, there are various beliefs that can hold you back, stop you from driving forward. And it's best to think of the biggest umbrella, all-encompassing beliefs that you have. Because if you get rid of a very, very big belief, an all-encompassing belief, then all the little beliefs that sit below it will also be removed. And that's great. Think about a life without limiting beliefs. How amazing would that be? And how much success will you get? Think about limiting beliefs that you have about today. What will stop you from having the most incredible day today? What limiting beliefs? So maybe you think, I'm not good enough. I don't believe I can have it. I don't believe I'm clever enough. I don't believe I'm skilled enough. I don't love myself. That's an important one. We're kind of brought up not to say, I love myself. But really think about that concept. If you don't love yourself and really believe in yourself, how can you expect anybody else to really love you and believe in you? It all starts with you. It's really important that you believe in yourself. Self-belief creates your success. So you can go ahead and you can change your limiting beliefs. So how would you do that? Well, maybe you've not really thought about getting rid of your limiting beliefs. They might frustrate you and you might think, oh, I really shouldn't be thinking that. However, because they're in there at the unconscious level and you haven't yet got the skills for how to change them in your unconscious mind, you live with them and you live with the frustration of having them. Great news, using NLP and timeline therapy techniques, we can remove limiting beliefs. Fantastic news. Imagine being able to do that. And all of this limiting belief removal and timeline therapy techniques for removing limiting beliefs are taught to you in detail during our NLP coach practitioner certification training. So you'll be able to get rid of all of your limiting beliefs for yourself, and you will know exactly how to help other people to remove their limiting beliefs. Now, imagine being able to do that. What a gift to give somebody if you can help them remove their limiting beliefs and create successful minds. It's incredible. Limiting beliefs are always preceded by a limiting decision to have that belief. So at some point, you've absorbed a limiting belief. But before you did that, just before, in the moments before, you decided to have that limiting belief, maybe consciously or unconsciously. Limiting decisions are identified in our language. So you can begin to listen to your own language and the language of other people so that you can begin to identify your limiting beliefs. So let's just have a look at how we identify limiting decisions. Anything you can't feel is usually a limiting decision. So if you hear something in your own language or that of somebody else and you think, well, it's not an emotion. So if you said, I'm just not good enough, you can't feel that because you don't know what the emotion is. So it's a limiting decision. When you hear negations in people's language, you're hearing limiting decisions. I'm not good enough, not being a negation. And when you hear comparatives, They're all better than me. It's a limiting decision. All beliefs have decisions that preceded them, whether they're limiting or empowering. And perhaps controversially, physiological issues, dis-ease, can be driven by limiting decisions, as can accidents. And you might say, well, accidents are accidents. You know, I didn't choose for somebody to run into me in their car. But if we really look at that, at some point you decided to be in the car, in that location, in that moment. And by taking responsibility for that decision, we can take out the root of the accident, and so forth, take all the negative emotion that sits with it. If somebody's not at cause for their emotions, it's a limiting decision. And all doubts are limiting decisions. So whenever you doubt something, it's a limiting decision. And so there's a limiting belief underlying it. So begin to listen to your own language and begin to listen to the language of other people. And you'll be amazed at how many limiting decisions and beliefs you can uncover just by listening to people's language. So let's have a practice. And this is just one technique. This is using submodalities to remove a limiting decision about your goal. So if you're not 100% certain, if you're only 99% certain or maybe 50% certain that you can achieve your goal, then this technique's for you. So let's do it together in the moments that we have left. It's very easy. So go ahead and close your eyes. And I say that because submodalities work, working with the pictures in your mind, is so much easier if you have no external input visually. So if you just close your eyes, you'll be able to do this really nicely. So think of your goal. And when you think of your goal, do you have a picture? Now notice that internal representation. Is it colourful? Is it black and white? Is it near or far? Is it bright or dim? Can you see yourself in the picture? Or are you looking through your own eyes? Is it focused or defocused? Framed or panoramic? Movie or still? Is there any sounds that are important? And how does it feel? And ask yourself, what is it that you believe about yourself that means you haven't achieved this goal yet? And just notice everything that's going on in your internal representation. Notice everything. And once you've noticed it, then just clear the screen down and let it go. Now, I want you to think of something you achieved really easily. Something that happened really, really easily for you. And when you think of that, do you have a picture? And once again, notice your internal representation. Is it colour or black and white? Is it near or far? Is it big or small? Can you see yourself in your picture? Or are you looking at it through your own eyes? Is it framed or panoramic? Is it movie or still, focused or defocused? Are there any sounds that are important? How does it feel? How does it feel? And now ask yourself, what is it that you believe about yourself that means you achieved this? Good. And when you're ready, just clear that screen down and let it go. Now, ask yourselves, what were the differences between those two internal representations? Between your goal and the thing that you achieved really easily. Think of the differences. And now, once again, think of your goal. And when you think of your goal, do you have a picture? And now change that internal representation to match the thing that you achieved really easily. Wiggle the knobs on the TV set and change the properties of that picture so that they match the thing that you achieved really easily. And notice how the way you think about your goal, the way you hear your goal, the way you visualize your goal, the way you feel about your goal, notice that it changes and becomes so much more compelling. And go ahead and seal that picture in. And open your eyes. And that's something for you to practice. So very briefly, we have a moment or so for any questions that you'd like to ask. You can unmute yourself by clicking the microphone icon, or you can use the little text message box to send me a question. Any questions today? No, nothing popping up today. So as always, you can contact us. You can call for a chat, learn more about NLP, and those are our numbers. Or you can email me and I'll call you, Christine@qfscoaching.co.uk. And you can see all our detail at our website, qfscoaching.com. Please have a visit. So just before we finish, I always offer you a gift to thank you for supporting me and listening to these audios and watching. So this week's gift. This week's gift is, and there's only one place. It's one place on our NLP Coach Practitioner Certification Training, which is running from the 4th to the 11th of March 2017. And this particular place will have the early booking price associated with it. And you will also get 2 personal accelerated performance coaching sessions with me. And that's worth about £500. So the first person to get in touch after the webinar will get the gift. So next Tuesday is our final webinar, the last one in this series. There will be more in the new year. And as I promised, next time we'll be placing your goal into your future timeline. So make sure you have your goal written down and it's the most compelling goal. So until then, have a brilliant, brilliant week. I hope that everybody's keeping nice and warm and that you're all ready for Christmas. And I will see you at this time next week. Take care and thanks for watching.